let's begin today, our first morning session here of Agents of Change, by talking a little bit about the burden of change. And first I want to introduce you to myself and where we come from. I'm sure you've already met a few people from Rescue Agency. And so we're a positive social change marketing company, and we focus exclusively on causing positive social change within the health space around the country. We've been around for about 17 years and focus on health behaviors such as tobacco use, physical activity, obesity prevention, alcohol use, marijuana prevention, opioids, etc., with about 160 of us around the country. You'll meet many of us as your wayfinders and moderators in your sessions, and we're so happy for you to be here and to join us in this conference. And please, as Kristen said, please feel free to tweet. I know a lot of times we go to public health conferences and there's only like 4 people on Twitter. I promise at this one, there's a few more people on Twitter. So give it a shot and be part of the discussion. So let's jump in and talk a little bit about what exactly behavior change marketing is. Because there's not really a cohesive definition necessarily. This is kind of the umbrella term for all of the different kind of work that we're doing in our communities to communicate and cause positive social change. And so a lot of times though, when people hear the word marketing, they hear things like targeting, and then they start to hear things like deceiving, and then they start to think things like manipulation. Has anyone ever kind of encountered someone in public health that feels this way about marketing? Yeah, right? And so today, I want to kind of talk about marketing in a different way, in hopes that we can kind of help our colleagues feel a little bit better about what marketing actually is and what it can do for us within the behavior change space. So marketing for us in behavior change, it's not about manipulation. Marketing is actually about reducing the burden of change. So what does that mean? Well, let's take Bob. Now, Bob here would love to lose some weight and start getting physically active. His doctors told him he needs to. His wife has told him he needs to. His kids are telling him he needs to. But Bob has some obstacles. Bob doesn't really have time to cook. He lives in a neighborhood with few healthy food options. He can't afford many healthy foods. And he doesn't have access to a gym or a park. Bob also isn't sure which foods are actually healthy. He doesn't know how to cook healthier foods. He believes that manly men only eat certain kinds of foods, so quinoa's out of the question. And he frequently drinks and eats with fried foods with his friends at the sports bar having fun. And so Bob faces a lot of obstacles or burdens to change. On the left side here, we have what we call physical burdens of change, and on the right, we have psychological burdens of change. Our job as change agents in our communities is to reduce this burden. Because when we're able to reduce that burden of change, whether it's physical burdens or psychological burdens, we're able to motivate Bob to actually change and make it easier for him to change. So what are these burdens? So on the physical side, we have things like cost. Can I afford the change that I'm being asked to do? Environment, does my environment make that change possible? Access. Safety, is it safe for me to actually engage in this healthy behavior? Ability, can I physically do this behavior? And then we have psychological burdens of change. The first and most obvious one is knowledge. What should I do? And we spend a lot of times helping our citizens understand what actually is healthy. But there's many more than just what should I do. There's also how should I do it? Why should someone like me do it? Can someone like me do it? Do people like me do it? And can I see myself doing that health behavior? And so the speaker right after me, Nick Buter, is going to talk a lot about these physical burdens of change and how we can change the physical environment to facilitate change. And so I'm going to spend more time talking about the psychological burdens of change. So what does this actually look like? What is a psychological burden of change? Well, let's take our friend Alex here. And so Alex is an alternative, emo teenager who smokes cigarettes. And he thinks that he needs to smoke cigarettes to be the identity that he wants to be, to fit into the group that he wants to fit in with. And so Alex, when his health counselor tells him that he should not be smoking cigarettes, that they're going to cause cancer, he doesn't just take that as a message of this is what's healthy and this is what's unhealthy. He processes it with all of the psychological burdens that come with him deciding not to smoke anymore. That means that maybe he won't feel as comfortable with his friends, he won't feel like himself, he won't feel like he fits in because he believes that smoking cigarettes is a part of that identity that he has as an alternative kind of emo kid. Here's another example. Let's take this wonderful abuela. This abuela loves her family, and she believes that as part of her culture, food and eating food is an important part of showing respect for the family. And so when dinner is served at the house that she lives in with her daughter and her grandkids, she makes sure that every single one of those grandkids cleans the plate, and after they clean the plate is ready with seconds, because that's part of the culture. Because food is a sign of respect, and having a lot of food is a sign of health. Now the problem is that the abuela's doctor has told her that she's got to eat a little bit less, and that her family would be healthier if they ate a little bit less too. But how does she reconcile the idea of eating less with the cultural norm of cleaning your plate? It's not just about the actual health behavior of eating less. She sees the behavior through the context of everything that food means to her and her family. Finally, let's take a look at Chuck. Now, Chuck lives a happy life in a rural area. Chuck likes to go to truck shows, and he likes to hang out with his friends at the bar. But his wife keeps telling him that he's got to get physically active. Right? That couch has a very deep embed where he sits, and it's time to change that. The problem is that no one that looks like Chuck in his community is physically active. He can't imagine someone like him going to the gym. That's just weird to him. His friends don't go to the gym. His friends aren't physically active. All he knows is, oh, so we're supposed to go for a walk together and hold hands? What is that? So for Chuck, the idea of being physically active, while he understands what that means, he doesn't understand how someone who looks like him and lives a life like him could actually achieve that. All of these are psychological burdens of change. These folks understand what health is, but don't see how someone like them can do it. Now, we can change that, though. We can change that by first realizing that we kind of have to stop telling people what to do. A lot of people already know what living healthy actually is. And it's not that they don't know how to live healthy. It's that we have to start making it easier for them to do so. Because they see health as this unbearable burden, this difficulty, this challenge that just gets more stressful every time they hear another commercial, another message, another doctor, another counselor telling them, you need to do this. Start doing it right now. They're like, I get it. I get that I need to do it, but I have no idea how someone like me could. Behavior change comes from the reduction of these psychological or physical burdens of change. And so when we focus on, well, what is getting in the way of Chuck's behavior, Bob's behavior, the abuela's behavior, we can actually start to remove these burdens and make change easier. And so removing the physical or psychological burdens of change, like I said, I'm going to focus a little bit more on the psychological burden of change, because that can be removed by forming new associations between different identities and behaviors. And so what does that mean? What does that actually look like? Let's take some lessons from commercial marketing and see what we can learn from that. While we can use commercial marketing as a guide, behavior change marketing has some fundamental differences. So we'll look at an example that we can learn from and an example that we can't learn so much from. Here's the first one.
Down in the valley on the foggy hill rocks with a crazy little demon blowing his top, fire in his eyes and smoke from his head. You gotta be real cool to hear the words he said. He did
All right, so that's the Fitbit. So keep that commercial in your mind. And now let's look at a second commercial.
My name's Ron, and I lost 80 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Men, pay attention. Have a big belly? Want to raise your testosterone? Like to have more energy? Then lose weight with Nutrisystem for men.
I'm Essex, and I lost 43 pounds on Nutrisystem.
Lose 15 pounds and 7 inches overall in your first month. Lose weight fast. Money back guarantee.
All right. It's an interesting way to promote eating healthy, right? So what's the difference? So we have two different commercials with two completely different styles. First, we saw Fitbit. And Fitbit, what was in that commercial? We saw healthy people. They looked pretty affluent, so they looked like they could afford to kind of make time to work out. They all looked pretty fit already. They weren't just like going for a walk. They were doing taekwondo after work, right? That's pretty intense physical activity. Fitbit knew that its audience, its potential customers, are people who are already healthy who want to track their health. So Fitbit didn't actually need to reduce any burdens because it wasn't actually trying to change behavior. It was trying to add its product to a pre-existing behavior. And a lot of commercial marketing works this way. There's a big enough market of people who already engage in the behavior that they need. And so all they do is focus on inserting their product into that behavior in hopes that that group of people will purchase that product and use it the next time they engage in the behavior. And this works. This is how many, many companies achieve success and cause change. Now, on the other hand, Nutrisystem for Men, while a bit crude in its approach, realized that it had a problem. Women were its biggest customer, and it wasn't selling a lot of diet plans to men. And so it went and did research to understand why is it that men aren't interested in diet plans. And it found out that men associate diets, not all men, but these kind of men, associate diets with not being manly. That's something for women, that diets are salads, and I don't want to eat a salad. I want to eat something manly. And Nutrisystem said, okay, fine. We're going to give you a diet plan that fits into your image of who you see yourself as. Whether we agree with who you see yourself as or not, we're going to make sure that you can see yourself as someone who can diet. And so Nutrisystem actually sought to reduce this burden of change. Right now there was this huge psychological burden in the way of all these men that diets are not for them. And they said, I'm going to show you a diet plan for men. And I'm going to associate this new image, a kind of guy that you've never thought of as a diet guy, and I'm going to associate that with our product to make it easier for someone like you to engage in this behavior. And so that's the difference between advertising and marketing that actually works to reduce burden, while advertising and marketing that just fits into pre-existing norms and just reinforces them. Now, the challenge is that only one of these really works for us. We, in order to kind of change things, we have to change something. We have to reduce a burden, and the only one that reduces a psychological burden in this case is the one that challenges pre-existing norms. But a lot of times we end up with the other strategy, which in our world we call it preaching to the choir. In the commercial world they call it selling products. So let's take a look at what that looks like.
To make wise food choices for you and your family, compare the nutrition information on food labels. Because healthy eating is worth it.
Healthy eating. It's for life.
Learn how the nutrition facts table can help you choose healthier foods. Call 1-800-O-CANADA or visit our website. A healthy message from the Government of Canada.
Now, I asked a Canadian if I could show this, and he was like, well, I guess. So what we found was that this ad, while it makes you feel good and it shows a wonderful mom and her daughter living this wonderful, healthy life that we wish all people would live, it doesn't actually challenge any of the current reality of what living healthy looks like. This commercial, like many out there, we're not just trying to pick on this one, but many, many out there reinforce current cultural norms of what it means to be healthy. So in this case, we saw a mom that obviously has plenty of time to spend with her family, can afford healthy foods, has access to healthy foods. Not everyone gets a supermarket that beautiful in their neighborhood, right? She herself is lean and obviously a healthy mother and obviously has a healthy daughter who's not only interested in all these fresh fruits and vegetables, but plays soccer, right? Is a very active kid. And even understands nutrition labels, which even some of us still don't understand those nutrition labels, right? So does this sound like the person who's at risk of eating unhealthy? No. We know what people who are at risk of eating unhealthy are. It's pretty much the opposite of every single one of these bullets, right? And so when someone like them, let's say it's someone who is living a low-income person, maybe has an overweight family, has had some overweight trends in their family, maybe doesn't have a lot of money and time, maybe is working 2 jobs, maybe is a single mom, maybe has a couple of kids that just jump around and scream and can't really join her at the supermarket. When she sees an ad like this, how do you think she feels? Doesn't make her feel great. She looks in this and says, well, duh, she can do it. If I had that access, that money, that time, that pre-existing physical body, I could live healthy too. So all of the things that were already in place, that were already in the way of that mom from living healthy, were just reinforced by a message that was designed to try and cause change. And that's the challenge when we are trying to create change, is that if we take this strategy from the commercial world that is simply meant to fit into existing norms, we not only don't change anything, but sometimes we may even reinforce those norms that are keeping some people from living healthy themselves. Now, this is kind of a really different approach because it forces us to be uncomfortable. We have to associate lifestyles, images, norms, people that normally aren't associated with health, and we have to associate them with living healthy, and it's weird. Every new norm is strange when it first happens. But it's really important that we do this, because while we continue to try and figure out how to create healthy norms, this is what the commercial world is doing.
Sometimes you wanna go where everybody knows your name, and they're always glad you came. You wanna be where you can see our troubles are all the same. You wanna be where everybody knows your name. You wanna go where people know people are all the same. You wanna go where everybody knows.
That was weird, right? But let me tell you that norm change starts off weird. It starts off by taking a lifestyle, and in this case we're looking at the opposite of what we want to do, but taking a lifestyle that is currently not associated with the behavior that you want people to perform, and finding an authentic, genuine way to associate it. So what did Michelob Ultra do? Michelob Ultra recognized that there's this whole group of young adults who are very social, who like to be out, like to be with their friends, but are very healthy. They don't want all the calories that are in beer, so they made a beer that was lower in calories. That was their first design attempt to reach this new group, and then they associated that product with that specific lifestyle. All of these healthy norms that are out there that include these commercial products, they're not by accident. They're by design. And funny enough, both of us have the same goal. We want to reach everybody in our community. And these companies, whether it's alcohol companies, fast food companies, cigarette companies, they want to reach everyone in their community too. But what they realize is that in order to get everyone to do what they're saying, in order to get everyone to drink, everyone to eat fast food, everyone to drink soda, everyone to do these things, they have to divide and conquer. Because there's no such thing as a strategy that can convince everyone to change all at once. And so you'll see all of these different brands, each targeting a different group of people, collectively changing the norms and striving for this world where everyone buys these products. These products that make our job harder and harder every day. We have the same goal, and we have health on our side. And I know that that sounds like, oh, great, we have health on our side. But people actually want to live healthier. Deep down inside, people feel better when they're healthy. They feel better about themselves. They want to live longer. They don't want to get diseases. These are all things people want. The problem is that there's things that are getting in their way. And our job, rather than reminding them of how unhealthy their life currently is to try and figure out what's getting in their way and help them change. So how do we reduce these psychological burdens? How do we do what Michelob Ultra did? First, it takes feeling a little bit uncomfortable, creating something that feels a little bit weird. We've never seen a group like that in a beer commercial. We should feel the exact same way about our programs. I've never seen a kid like that in an anti-drug commercial. I've never seen an adult like that in a physical activity commercial. That's kind of weird. But that's exactly how it should feel, because marketing's job is to change norms. So that first time you see it, it should feel a little weird, but as you keep putting it out there and out there, it should become more normal. And so how do we do that is we begin with these 3 steps, 3 easy steps that are all focused on reducing the burden of change. The first one is that we use psychographics to divide our potential audience into segments. There is no such thing as a campaign, as a brand, as a message that reaches everybody. It just doesn't exist. Look at the commercial world. Some of the most famous brands like Apple, Nike, Coke, they have just as many people that hate them as people who love them, right? So if they can't do it with $1 billion, we can't do it with $50,000, let me tell you that. But what we can do is we can divide our audience up and decide who needs our help the most. And pick one of those groups and focus on that group. And with that group, associate. Identify an audience value, something they care about, not something we care about, but something they care about that we can associate with the healthy behavior. Think about how Michelob did it. They found two values. They found the value of wanting to consume less calories and the value of socializing and camaraderie and being together after those intense physical activities. And they took both of those values and they said, Michelob Ultra can help you achieve these things, right? We have to do the same thing. We have to say, okay, I understand why I want you to change. I understand why my funder wants you to change, why my medical director wants you to change, but why could you possibly want to change? What is it that you care about in your life that I can associate my change with? And then lastly, we tailor. We tailor our messages and strategies based on the culture, the values, the identity of the groups we want to be. We start to show people that aren't normally associated with health, and we start to show them as the ambassadors of these new health behaviors. Because healthy people already see themselves as healthy. We don't have to keep showing them over and over again. We need to start showing different people. We need to start making it so that everybody can see themselves in health. Because today they can't. Today health has an image. It's one kind of person. It's one weight. It's often one race. It's one economic status. And that's not true. Anyone can be healthy. But it's up to us to change that norm. So let me show you a little bit of how we've done this before with teenagers. So we do something called peer crowd segmentation. And we have a number of workshops on it where we go in depth. But very quickly, I'll just tell you, there's 5 peer crowds that we find around the country. These are kind of, a peer crowd is a group of teens that have similar identity, psychographics, hobbies, interests, etc. And so while you have a teen and you have a peer group, the peer crowd kind of combines a lot of peer groups under a similar culture, a similar identity. And so the 5 peer crowds that we find around the country are mainstream teens, popular teens, hip-hop teens, country teens, and alternative teens. And over the years, as we've done a ton of research on these groups, we've created an instrument that helps us measure what peer crowd a teenager is influenced by in a quantitative way. It's called the I-based survey. It's 2 pages. This is 1 page of it. 1 page is all photos of girls, and then the other page is all photos of boys. And people select which photos best fit into their group of friends, least fit into their group of friends, and that tells us which group they're most influenced by. And so we recently were able to put this survey with the help of our wonderful clients in Virginia, the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth. We're able to get this survey on the Youth Risk Behavior Survey for Virginia. That's a feat, if anyone knows how the YRBS works. And what we were able to find was that there were huge discrepancies between risk behaviors. Huge. When we looked at cigarette smoking, for example, just 8% of Virginia teens smoked cigarettes in the past 30 days. But it was almost 21% of alternative teens that had done so. And look at some of these other groups. Mainstream teens, only 2.8% of them had smoked cigarettes. And when we looked at marijuana use, it was hip-hop teens, 34.2% of them that had smoked marijuana in the past 30 days compared to just 15.8% of the overall average. And then we had 2 groups that were significantly below average, mainstream and country teens, that were both significantly less likely to smoke marijuana. Right, so this gave us a very, very clear roadmap. It told us that mainstream teens, they're healthy. They see themselves in health. They see health as a part of their identity, as a part of their lifestyle. But in the case of smoking, alternative teens do not. Alternative teens may actually see smoking as the norm. And we found that through focus groups that they think every band smokes, every cool person that they know smokes. In marijuana use, we see that mainstream teens and country teens already see themselves as non-users, but hip-hop teens don't. And we see this every day in some of the, in some of the norms that we see through music videos and things like that. And so we can't segment, without segmentation, we can't effectively tailor our messages. So if we don't know this, if we don't know which teens are actually at risk, what we end up doing is targeting the middle, right? As many teens as possible. But we know that there's no such thing as targeting everybody, so when we aim for the middle, guess which group we end up reaching? The mainstream teens. Mainstream teens are kind of the average-looking teen, the center of the center, right? So while we think we're engaging in a strategy to try and reach the broadest group by using the most kind of generic-looking teens, what we end up doing is just reinforcing the same norm that already exists. Telling the kids who don't use that, good job not using, and telling the kids who do use, like, hey, the other kids don't use, but I guess you want to be different, so continue to use, right? We send a mixed message. So let me show you an example of what this means. And these are by no means, we're not trying to pick on anybody here, but there are examples like this all around the country of targeting mainstream teens over and over again, like this one.
Are people talking about your smoker's breath?
Now, let me tell you, if you've never been to a mainstream house party, that's what it looks like. So what we know is that alternative teens are the ones most likely to smoke cigarettes. But most prevention messages feature mainstream teenagers. And so put yourself in the mindset of an alternative teen, right? I've been told I shouldn't smoke, it's really bad for me, but my group smokes. I think smoking is a part of my identity. I think it's cool. I think I need to do it to fit in. And then I see this ad. What does this ad tell you? You're right. Everything you thought about the norms of who smokes and who doesn't smoke is perfectly accurate. And we have just reinforced that norm. And it's not, not meant to pick on this one ad. There are thousands and thousands of teen campaigns, adult campaigns that reinforce the norms that mainstream people are healthy and everyone else is not. Let me show you one last example.
Sometimes it feels like I'm the only one who doesn't smoke weed. Turns out, I'm not alone.
So, the hip-hop teens are the ones that are most likely to smoke marijuana. But as we look at the new marijuana campaigns that are coming out around the country, what do we see over and over again? Mainstream teens talking about how they don't smoke weed. So a hip-hop teen looks at that, and what do they say? That's right, you don't smoke weed, you're not cool. I'm cool, and I smoke. Right, so when we don't know who our audience is, we may inadvertently actually be increasing the psychological burdens of change by reinforcing the norms that currently exist in our communities. Health shouldn't only look like this for teenagers, right? Health shouldn't be a stock photo. Health should be diverse. So what does that look like? How do we actually cause this change? Well, the first and foremost, we have to select a segment. Because if we don't decide who we're going to reach, we're probably going to end up reaching the healthiest people out there. It takes conscious effort to decide that I'm going to disrupt the current health norms that exist in my community, and I'm going to make more people feel like health can be a part of their lives. That takes a decision up front in campaign development, in planning, and program planning. And then we have to find a cultural value, something they care about, and associate that with the healthy behavior. Let me show you a few examples, a few diverse examples of what that could look like. First, let's look at a teen example.
I'm Big Crit, KRIT, it stands for King Remember the Time. I'm known for making that gritty, southern, humble country music. The journey didn't start just going straight to Atlanta. It started from going from Meridian, Mississippi to Birmingham, Alabama, and then to Atlanta. And from that point, that's when the journey got really real. Pretty much being homeless, living in hotel rooms, by myself, 18, 19 years old. It showed me that I'm strong enough, and I'm talented enough, and I'm creative enough, and I come from a place where people don't even expect that. What I've noticed nowadays is that a lot of people are using their vices to be creative, and all you're doing is handicapping yourself. The way I feel about tobacco is that it's not for me, because knowing that it's the leading cause of preventable death in the US is crazy. We all need to be healthy. We all need to be in our tip-top shape, 100% to go out here and do what we do every single day, no matter what. It's that Mississippi native Big Crit, and I keep it fresh and tobacco-free with Fresh Empire.
So this is a tobacco prevention campaign that we work on with the FDA that was brave enough to allow us to target on hip-hop culture. And what does it say is it says that your career, your success that you strive for in your life can actually be supported by living tobacco-free. And we've shown this in some focus groups where people didn't recognize who that was. He's a rapper that many teens know, but many teens don't know who he is too. And the teens who don't know what he is, the first thing they said was, I've never seen someone like that talk about not smoking. I've never seen someone with that story, with that style, with that voice, with that grit talk about not smoking. That totally puts all the norms that they had in their mind, it challenges all of them and makes them think like, wow, maybe being tobacco-free can be something that I proudly include in my identity. Let me show you a different example.
When I first started smoking, I was 15, probably in high school.
When I was 18,
16 years old.
I think it was like trying to be older than you are.
The reason that I decided to quit was because I was tired of the way I felt.
I felt like I was a slave to something. And I don't like being a slave to anybody or anything like that.
I wanted to join the commune group because I had friends joining it who wanted to quit together.
Definitely sounded like something that could be a helpful tool.
The fact that the meetings were out of the bar, at first I was like, wait, what? But I think the way it ended up working out was like, oh, I can hang out at a bar and not smoke. Like,
this group is the only way that I think that I could ever break the association between smoking and drinking.
So before I ever started the groups, I smoked about a pack and a half a day. And now I'm smoke-free.
Even though I haven't fully quit smoking, each group that I've done has helped me reduce the amount that I smoke.
If you're honestly thinking about quitting smoking, I think you owe it to yourself to take a look at Commune.
See my progress or join me by clicking the quit button on the Commune Facebook page.
So this campaign was for young adult hipsters and trying to get these hipsters to quit smoking. But the biggest thing we heard from them was, well, I have tried to quit smoking, but as soon as I go party, as soon as I hang out with my friends, I start smoking again. And so we made a cessation group that literally meets at the bar for 10 weeks and associates that environment with their quest to be tobacco-free. And we found this to be more successful, about 30% success rate for cessation for these young adults a year after they participated. Because we've shown them how being tobacco-free fits into their specific life, challenge their norms. One last example.
There's a lot about Virginia to be proud of. Its places, its hard-working people, its homegrown spirit. The Commonwealth is a great place to live. But more than 1.7 million Virginians are in places where they don't have healthy, fresh produce yet.
That's a shame, considering agriculture is our state's largest industry.
So, pledge your support and tell our leaders to back investments in grocery stores where they are needed the most. That's the seed of development that will generate an average of 250 jobs per store, making our communities and our economy healthy and strong. Plus, don't you think all Virginians deserve access to healthy food? Visit freshspotva.com to pledge your support today.
Now here we're talking about reducing burdens with a policy, right? So we obviously know that food deserts are a problem, but in a purple state like Virginia, we know who we can count on to help us solve that problem, and we also know who may stand in our way. And so we said, well, what does the other side care about? Fine, they don't care about food deserts in poor areas. What could we tell them about that they might care about? It was jobs. It was economic development. It was the notion that we can help these communities lift themselves up by simply investing in healthier foods in their communities. And by making the economic development argument, we broke the barrier of what's normally associated with eating healthy and living healthy in food deserts, and we made it an issue that everyone can proudly be excited about supporting. And so all of these, what they take is they take that audience segmentation to make those relevant associations and that message tailoring so that every single one of you can reduce that burden of change. Because everyone in this audience has the ability to make living healthier easy. Every single one of you can. Our job is simply to decide that it's not enough to tell people what living healthy is. Our job is to identify who needs our help the most and focus on how do we make living healthier easier for that group of people. It starts by breaking the healthy person stereotype. The stereotype that only a certain kind of person in our community is allowed to live healthy. That you have to change the way you dress, the way you look, you have to get a better job, and that's the only way that health can be a part of your life. And we change that stereotype And we start to associate every kind of person with living healthy. We start to say that he can live healthy, and he can live healthy, and him, and her, and him. And we do that by challenging the images that we use, by challenging the groups that we're targeting, and by saying that even our 3 friends at the beginning, that even they can fit health into their life, by diversifying the faces of health. So as you go through the summit today, I want you to keep thinking about that group in your community. Think about the group that is the least healthy, the group that needs your help the most. And think about the challenges that they face and pick up tidbits, tactics, strategies about how it is that you can reduce the burden of change for that person. Because every single one of you has the ability to do it. You just have to decide that that's what you want to do. So thank you very much, and thank you for coming to the Agents of Change Summit.